I'm back again with another dust collection video. This will be the 6th one in the series here on the channel. So if you find that you enjoy this one and you haven't seen the others, definitely check them out. I'll link all of them down in the description. And this one, I'm going to share my dust collection cart with you. It's probably a little different than most of the other dust collection carts you've seen, mainly because I'm using a box rather than a bucket as far as how I'm setting up my Cyclone dust separator, which is a topic that I covered pretty extensively in the 4th video in the series. This dust collection cart really highlights the benefits of using a box, mainly because of the design and the overall functionality of the cart, and the fact that the end result ends up being more like a custom-made thing rather than something that's just pieced together, which is typically what a dust collection cart that's built around a bucket ends up being like. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Cy. Come on. Come on. Okay, well, I guess Cy is going to be shy, but I've got the fix for this. Just give me 1 second. Cy can't resist music. You did great. You're so graceful. I just love you. So before I get into the components and break everything down for you, I'm going to explain how I use this thing. I used to use it for a lot of general cleanup, but a couple years ago I got another small shop vac at the thrift store. It was $8. I couldn't pass it up. I used that for general cleanup. It did stink. I had to put a new filter in it and stuff, but it's just a whole lot more convenient to use that than this, because this usually stays parked in the corner over behind the table saw. It's got a 20-foot cord on it, so I have to pull it out, and in order to get to the other side of the shop, I'd have to replug it in a different location. It's just a lot more convenient to use the small shop vac. So I don't really use it for general cleanup anymore. It works great for that. I just don't use it for that anymore. I do use it for the sander. The sander lives here on the cart, and it hangs on this 12-2 electrical cord that's just hanging around the hose. It just slips on there like that. Very simple, works great. This is a 5-inch Mirka sander. It's also a Mirka hose. It is an expensive sander, but I don't like to sand, and this is a great sander. It makes sanding a whole lot more pleasant. I've had other sanders before, and this sander is just awesome. So if you have the money, I highly recommend it, but it is expensive, so it is what it is. The other tool that stays on the cart all the time is this palm router. This is a Rocky router. I got it from MLCS Woodworking. It's been a pretty good tool. It comes with a little dust port, and this hose, I'm not sure where I got it. It fits into the dust port on this thing perfectly. The wrench for the router is on this little screw in the front. This is a wooden cradle. It has a hole in it, and that allows me to put the router up without having to remove the bit or mess with the height adjustment or anything. And I almost always keep a spiral flush cut bit in that router. I also have a short piece of electrical cable here that's threaded up through the zip ties. One end of it holds the power cord on the router end. That way, in case the router was to try to fall off of there, it can't fall all the way down. And the other end is for hanging the power cord, just to tidy things up. Occasionally, I'll use this for my track saw. That's what this hose is for. I mostly use the track saw with a dust bag, but if I do get into a job or a project where I'm using the track saw a lot, I'll hook it up to this. The last thing that I use this for is that table saw over there, which is set up with a full-time dado stack. So I'll just roll it around there, hook it up, and it just about gets all the dust because it's not a through cut, so there's no dust coming off the top of the blade. It's all just going under the table. So this thing pretty much gets all of it. This is a DGC eye socket auto vac switch, And this is the older model. I don't know why they don't carry this style anymore, but I have a bunch of these. They work really well, and it's just attached on there with some zip ties. The Cyclone dust separator is an X-Master. It's a Chinese separator. I got 2 of these a long time ago. One of them is under the table saw, and this is the other one. These are the best Cyclone dust separators that I have. All of my separators are Chinese. I've been thinking about buying some more of the popular brand separators so that I can make my own Cyclone dust separator shootout video. So stay tuned for that. I'm pretty sure I'm going to do that. And then I can do a comparison and see what I think, the best separators are. But the separator is just screwed to the lid here. And the hose is the hose that came with the vacuum. And the distance of these legs is about 19 inches. But there's some extra distance here so that I didn't have to put any kind of fitting there. So the hose just fits directly onto the Cyclone, and there's enough room that the hose can bend without me having to put an elbow or any kind of fitting there. The vacuum cleaner is a Rigid WD 14501. It's a 6 horsepower, 14 gallon. It's a quiet shop vac. It's not quite as loud as some of the other ones. It's got the SNR whatever technology. And it works good. It's got a lot of suction. It's got like 150 CFM. Swivel casters, I got those off of eBay. They're probably like $3 a piece. The power cord's a heavy duty power cord. It's only 20 feet. And I've got another piece of electrical cable here with this little hook made up that I hang the hoses and then the electrical cord in case I want to roll it to a different part of the shop and I don't want to drag the cord around. I've also got another piece of a couple different pieces of electrical cord at the top. One piece is holding the hose, so the hose stays going straight over the top of the vacuum cleaner. And then this one here is just kind of holding this extra hose to keep it up and out of the way. The rest of it is just plywood parts. The majority of this thing is made out of 1/4 inch plywood. There is some 3/8 plywood on the platform that the vacuum cleaner sits on. There's these little blocks that index the vacuum. These little indentations on the side of the vacuum. The blocks just kind of hold the vacuum there. It's loose, but because of those blocks, it just keeps it right there. These legs are hollow. They're made out of 1/4 inch plywood. They're just glued and stapled together with a fine wire staple. It's like an upholstery stapler. The whole idea was to make it as light as possible. There's a little 3/4 inch plug at the top and bottom of the legs, and the top is just glued and stapled, and I'm pretty sure the bottom is probably screwed. We'll find out when I take it apart. It's been a while, so I can't remember how I went about attaching the bottom. The lid is all 1/2 inch plywood. There's a little lip that goes around the outside, so it just goes over the container. The container is all 1/4 inch plywood as well. It's also glued and stapled with the upholstery stapler. And if I had it to build again, I would build the container out of 1/2 inch plywood. The idea was to make it light, but because it takes so long to fill this container up, I don't really think it's that big a deal that it's a little bit heavier on the day that I have to dump it. So I would rebuild the container out of 1/2 inch plywood, maybe even 3/4 inch plywood, because I don't think it really makes that big of a difference. The 1/4 inch plywood gets sucked in. I'm not worried about it collapsing as much as maybe compromising the joints and making it leak. There's quite a bit of movement when it sucks the sides in. So I've got this spacer that I slide down into the middle of the container just to keep it from sucking the sides in. And I'll show you that when I take the top off of it. The bottom, the cart, is independent of the container, and it's just all made out of 3/4 inch plywood. There's a little ledge that goes around the outside of it. That's about 1.5 inches. The container just fits down into the cart, and the idea there was to keep the wheels off of the container and to make the bottom of the container, I think the bottom of the container is actually 1/2 inch plywood. So again, I was just trying to keep as much weight off of it as possible. Now I'll go ahead and take it apart and kind of show you the different components, and we'll check all that out. Ooh. This is the spacer. And this, I guess I need to go dump it. Now is probably a pretty good time to take a look at everything. So this is the spacer. And this is the lid. Yep, screws. That's what I thought. Oh, God. Did you dig the video? Because if you did, you should come on back and bring your shovel. Until next time,